there's an inherent benefit of something being hard. I mean, because it's a reward
100%.
of actually putting in that harder work that you're going to get, and sometimes we forget that.
You're listening to ChiroCandy, the podcast of sweet chiropractic success. Now, here's your host, Billy Sticker.
Welcome to another episode of the ChiroCandy Podcast, and this is a special one. I was going through some old things. The ChiroCandy just brand is right at 10 years old now, and I was looking at actually pulled up the original, like the very first episode I ever did. There's even like episode 0, and was listening to it. But then I looked, and Dr. Tabor Smith, who joins us today, was the very first guest we ever had on the ChiroCandy Podcast almost 10 years ago. And so thanks for being a good friend, and thanks for being on today.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, you're one of my very, very, very good close friends. And, just appreciate the journey. A lot can happen in 10 years, And I think that was episode 3, wasn't it, on your podcast?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, because you had 0, 1, 2, and then I was episode 3. That's cool. We've been on a cruise. We did a seminar cruise and everything. That was a blast.
We want to do another one of those.
Yeah, we should.
We definitely want to do another one. I've got some ideas kind of bouncing around for that. But yeah, and we had met before then, because back in 2007, 2008, I was working in office for a chiropractor. And then we doubled the volume in both practices. I started selling some stuff on eBay, showing what we were doing. And then you had your screening, which I forget.
Spinal screening.
Yeah.
Yep.
The DVDs and everything.
Yeah.
You had that going on.
Just to teach people how to do that.
Yeah. And so we met back then, and which is one of the reasons I had you on the podcast whenever, we launched that. So let's kind of talk about that journey.
Yeah.
Like you started the spinal screenings.
Yep.
And then, what you're doing now.
Yeah. So I was, this is my 18th year of practice, but I did 2 years as an associate. So 16 years in my own practice. And I was always doing spinal hygiene with my own patients. I used to have these big Tupperware boxes. I would go to Hobby Lobby and fill it up with like what I needed to, it was like super clunky, and I would give it to them. So I was doing spinal hygiene in my own office back then, but I don't know if I was teaching spinal hygiene yet. I had started spinal screening because that's how we started marketing my practice. And Chris Burfield helped me to put together a spinal screening product for chiropractors. And then I kept teaching that spinal screening, and I thought, well, man, these chiropractors need to know, like, it's one thing to get people in the door from a spinal screening, but like the real goal would be to educate the patient and teach them about lifetime spinal care, which was what my spinal hygiene was. That's what I was really passionate about anyway, sharing with my patients and community. And then so we put together the spinal hygiene movement, and that was we didn't even start teaching that to chiropractors till about 4 or 5 years ago, probably.
Yeah, it's been great. So
and then our offices exploded too. So we went from that one office, we were probably seeing a couple hundred a week, to that office now we've hit 475. I like to say 500 because we're close. We're so close, but we haven't hit 500 yet. I told my team, when we hit 500 visits, we're throwing a pizza party or something. We're gonna have a good time. But that office is doing well, and then we got 3 others now, so 4 total.
So what's your goal with your offices?
That question is really hard for me to answer. The goal, if I just throw it out, an easy answer would be, we said 10 offices is what we want in the Houston area. But why? You know what I mean? Like, right. Why do you want that? That's the hardest question, is like, I love chiropractic. I want chiropractic to grow. I like practicing chiropractic. I love my team. I love helping the community and being the chiropractor in the community. And so that's the why behind it. And we just chose 10 because it's like a big, what's that saying? Like shoot past the moon or whatever. Shoot for the stars and you'll hit the moon or something.
Yeah,
I'm like we're at 4 now. And like I was telling you before we started here, it's like now we've got to slow down and get things like you were at one, I was at one, and we had to like get it. In fact, this is a good point is you've got to get the systems down at each level that you're at. And when I was at one and I tried to open a second one in Tomball, and it was me trying to travel back and forth between offices, like, and see patients in both places, and it just wore me out. I couldn't do it, and we sold that office. Ended up being a good thing because we sold that office, and I invested all that money in the documentary, A Better Way. That's how that documentary came out, because that was not a cheap production. But then it allowed me to get my systems right and my marketing right in my main office that got us up to 300-400 a week. And then we were able to purchase or acquire, 3 other offices since then. And now we were at that one office, we got systems right. We're at 3 offices, and offices were running well. 4, it's like wobbling again. You know what I mean? So we're going to go back and make sure we got it all down, got our systems, got our team right before we move forward and go. That's a long way to answer your question of what my goal was, but
no, I think that's good because obviously you and I are both entrepreneurs and both passionate about the profession. I love that, you went from spinal screening to, the spinal hygiene is such a movement, right? And that it's just making a big impact on the profession as a whole. I think that's fantastic. Then also you have, The Better Way.
Right.
The documentary that you did and these offices. And so it's like there's something in us. I think it's innate that God put in us to grow.
Yes.
Right.
And
like we go ahead.
no, I was just going to say the interesting thing is like, I can tell you like where the core passion is in me is spinal hygiene and lifetime spinal care, because like, even when I pitched that movie, A Better Way, to Reverent Media, that's who helped produce the movie. I pitched it as spinal hygiene preventing spinal degeneration. Like we have an epidemic of spinal decay. We have degeneration that's affecting kids now. This is a crazy silent epidemic that someone needs to put this big documentary out on, and they thought it was a great idea, but then they were like, we got like a corrupt healthcare system. You know what I mean? And there's a deeper reason why nobody's looking to the spine, because it's being covered up and it's being marketed by all these billions of dollars to keep your mind away from the function of your body, and then the core cause, the root cause of all the problems. And we need to focus on that. So they built that on the first half of the movie, and then you'll notice like the second half of the movie is more about chiropractic and prevention. It even mentions spinal hygiene in there. So it definitely is the passion of mine is spinal hygiene, and the Lord just kind of like has directed me through that. Spinal screening, we're still checking spines. Spinal hygiene, we're teaching people. A Better Way is about chiropractic. Chiropractic offices are growing. So I try to keep it in, because you mentioned we're entrepreneurs, and I can get so all over the place. I can start 5 businesses with you tomorrow if you want. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
I love it. But also I'm like, no, guys, let's stay on this highway right here. And that's the hardest part for me to do, is stay on one lane, which for me is going to be educating the world about lifetime spinal care.
I think it's great. But looking at where you are right now, just having a conversation here.
Yeah.
One entrepreneur to another, like it smells so similar as far as what you were saying. It's wobbling now.
Yeah.
Because you've got to make sure your systems and stuff are in place for growth. I think we have this talk at church. I'm on the leadership team in our church, and we know what gets new people in. Like we can turn on the marketing. It's working phenomenally well, but we don't want to, because we don't have all the teams in place to be able to literally affect the life change and help usher in the life change we know God wants to do in these people. And we don't want it to be just about numbers. Like we want it to we want to create an environment where people are experiencing life change. So right now we still got to have some marketing going, but we're focused on building our people and building our SOPs, building our teams, making sure, they get the vision. And it's the same thing in business.
Yeah.
It's like, we've got to make sure, okay, what's working well and what's not working. what have we done? What are the SOPs we have in our other offices? And I would imagine, especially buying some established practices, there's probably some things that you step in, especially with this last one, because it was a great practice already. But you walk in, there's probably some things there that you're like, I actually really like that. We could probably do that in our other ones.
Oh,
Like, did you find that?
100%. Yeah, and like you said, it's you just mentioned you got to have those systems right. If things get a little wobbly, and you don't want like all those new patients or all those new clients coming in at one time when you don't have your systems right. And that's true. Like I'll tell you, new patients, I love them. They make your life easier, right? Because you don't have new patients, you're in trouble. You're kind of hurting. But at the same time, like in our Cypress office, last month we had 108 new patients in last month, and our conversions were terrible. Like we got in this morning. This was the first day of December, and so we went over November's numbers, and I'm like, look, we're changing things back to way they were when our conversions were higher. We weren't processing as many new patients, but we have to get these systems. They're important, like I guess they're not as important if you have nobody to go through them. So you do need some new patients, but you're going to get to a point where it's like you can't handle them more if you don't have the systems where they need to be, or you're going to lose them, and faster than you can keep signing them up.
Yeah, we ran into that whenever I worked in office for that chiropractor. We had 2 locations, and we had a satellite location that was ran by an associate doc, and we had really focused on a lot of marketing, did a bunch of screening out in the community, this really big event, and we had like 80 new patients in the 2 to 3 week period, and it was a train wreck.
Yeah.
I mean, it just, all of a sudden we had our existing patients having to wait, and we just didn't have proper amount of new patient time. And then even the doc that ran that office I say he's older. He was in his late 30s, but he was a new doctor. Like he had gone to chiropractic school. He started when he was 30, or early 30s. And we used to joke that he spent a lot of money to learn the words that he did, and he wants to show them off. It was just, so even the day 1s and day 2s were they just weren't where they needed to be.
Yeah.
It's like, look, a 5th grader needs to be able to understand what you're saying.
Right. Yep.
And right, Rusty was a nurse, and she went through a day 1 and day 2 with him, and she's like, it was over my head. And this is nothing negative about him. It's just kind of at the time where we were, so everything was just clunky. We didn't have everything in place. And when it was all said and done, it hurt the practice. I mean, we were able to get a handful of clients, new patients from it, but it was just really messy. One of the things that I was going to throw out there that we're doing with some offices that's working well, I was going to just see if this might be something you can implement, is some type of a pre-video that they watch before they come in.
Mm-hmm.
Some type of content beforehand. We have like a weight loss office doing it right now that's really, really working. And I share the story. I had a Chiari 1 malformation and was undiagnosed till I was in an MVA, and then started having some issues like after the car accident. Went to the neurologist, and he's like, look, here's the issues. I really think you need to go see a surgeon. And the surgeon was there in Houston, Dr. Dong Kim, and he required I watch a webinar before my appointment. And I was like, here's a neurosurgeon. From a marketing standpoint, I was like, this is fantastic. But we have some offices doing something very similar. Like, I get having a day 1 and day 2, but what if you can do something a little bit different? Even Chad Warner, when we were doing a lot of stuff with them, generating a bunch of leads, but then it's like, okay, sometimes they're not showing up or the quality's not there. What he did was they took a podcast interview, him and his business partner, talking like they were doing some functional medicine stuff. And they just took this podcast that talked about problems with traditional approach to functional medicine, and then what they're doing different in their office and how well it's working. And it was just this podcast interview. And they started giving that to the people that had scheduled, but before they would come in, and it drastically improved their show rate. And then even people accepting care, their conversions went up. So that may be something that you guys might be able to figure out.
Yeah,
A piece, something like that.
definitely. Yeah, I definitely I think like the best approach to marketing so far that I've learned in I think is in creating content. You know what I mean? Whether they've already scheduled or they've already signed up for care or you're just trying to keep them under care for retention, like you can't go wrong if you're creating good content because you could literally use it at any point of that life cycle for the patient.
And then how often do we have to hear something over and over and over again before we actually get it?
Mm-hmm. It's true.
If your patients, when you think of your favorite patients, the ones that do get it, they didn't learn everything at a dinner talk or your
Right.
day 1 or day 2.
Yep.
Like you've got to kind of repeat over and over again. This is why spinal hygiene is important. This is why we're doing this. This is why you're having this issue again because of XYZ. Just that education is so crucial.
Yeah.
And it's never been easier to create content either.
But it's a lot for clinic owners, I feel like. You know what I mean? I mean, because it's like the first several years you're trying to just get the adjustment down. You know what I mean? And then you're like, yeah, I know a lot of great stuff, but then you're trying to create this content, but then you're trying to figure out, well, how often do I create it? How can I post it? While at the same time you're trying to adjust patients, and it really is. I tell people like practice isn't really easy, I don't think.
Yeah,
You
that's a
know?
good point.
But if it was easy, everybody would do it. So it's not. It's like there's an inherent benefit of something being hard. I mean, because it's a reward
100%.
of actually putting in that harder work that you're going to get, and sometimes we forget that.
That's so good. I've been, not to get super spiritual, but God's had me in Isaiah 55 for the past couple of weeks, just like digging into that chapter. And it's so cool because if most Bibles at the beginning of the chapter, that chapter is entitled An Invitation to Abundance.
Mm.
And so it's just been neat, just getting these downloads from different sections of it. But it talks about that in there. It's like, hey, if you're struggling, come here, come listen.
Yeah.
Here's what I want you to do. I'm going to give you a plan, but you have to work it. It talks in there. One of the things that's in that chapter is his thoughts are higher than our thoughts. His ways are higher than our ways.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just that right there.
Yep.
We don't think big enough.
Yep.
We don't. We just like God thinks so much bigger. How can I be a bigger thinker? And then right after that, it goes on to say, that God brings the rain, just like the rain and the snow. We need it to water, the soil.
Yep.
We complain about the rain. We don't like going through those seasons.
Yeah.
If it was up to us, we'd just go through spring in a mild summer.
Right.
But we have to go through falls and winters. And
Yep.
some winters are harder than others,
Yeah.
It's like we need all of it. And one of the things God was showing me in that is he provides the seed. Like one of the things the rain does is it helps bring forth the seed. God provides the seed, not the harvest. He'll help us with the harvest, but he provides the seed, the soil, the sunshine, and the rain. We have to take that, and just like what you're saying, we have to work it.
Yep.
We have to plant it. We have to till the ground. We have to keep it fertile. We've got to do that stuff.
Yep.
And then we see the harvest.
Yeah.
But, I think there are times where God just brings in a harvest. Like there's just some grace and it's like, oh, wow,
Mm-hmm.
thanks. Like that was a benefit. But yeah, that's not sustainable, or he wants to sustain us with systems and processes and ideas. And he'll give us those ideas, those seeds, and he gives us all the recipe to bake the cake. But we got to do the work.
Yep.
We've got to do something with the seed that he provides.
That's good.
So
I feel like I listened to Brian Johnson he does this app called Heroic, and I was like super stressed the other day, like just from, we got money in this marketing, this doesn't work. I'm looking at numbers. I'm like, what's working, what's not? And then I was like, I got to de-stress. And I clicked on one of his trainings on stress. And he was like, and this one hit me. It said, we stress when we're fighting what is. Like we're not accepting what is. And so we stress over it. And as soon as I heard that, I was like, you know what? This is just work that I have to do. And this is just how it is right now. And there's really no reason to be stressed over it. The only time I was mentally stressed over it was when I was fighting it.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. And by the way, I love your preaching. I see you were up on stage, I don't know, talking, sound like you're preaching maybe to a group or something the other day, and you said that you believed that it's okay for kids to hear their parents argue sometimes. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
some parents go in a room and they hide, but kids never learn how to like deal with confrontation or something,
Right.
if you don't hear that. And last night, me and my wife, we were arguing, it wasn't like mean arguing. It was just like a disagreement. And I thought about you and I thought about what you said there. And I was like, the kids were sitting there listening and then we resolved it, and then it was over. And nobody ever said a word, but I thought in my mind, like they're sitting there going, oh, okay, mom and dad have a little bit of a disagreement. And now they're all right.
Yeah, thank you. I preached a message on parenting. We did a series. I'm on the speaking team at our church, and so normally about once every other month, I'm speaking at one of our campuses. There's a group of us that kind of rotate. But we did a series where pastor had asked just the people what are topics, what are questions that you have that you would like us to do a message on? And one was on parenting. And I was really honored because he's like, look, your fruit speaks so highly, like your kids are phenomenal. And he said, would you mind preaching on parenting, doing a message on parenting? And so I was honored and humbled, because sometimes your kids turn out the way they do because of you. Sometimes it's in spite of you, But our kids are fantastic. Brady worked with us here at ChiroCandy for a long time, then launched his own business. He has ChiroCandy now. They're working with over 400 churches across the country doing lead generation.
That's awesome.
Like they're literally making a huge impact on the kingdom. My daughter and her husband, all of our kids serve faithfully at our church. Brendan, Brendan, he's 18. He's the band director at our main campus. He is just so gifted. He's an incredible musician and leader when it comes to music. And so that's why they had asked, us to do this.
That's cool.
But that was one of the key things is, we've learned a lot in being married almost 29 years now. And there's been good years and bad years. But I think when it comes to parenting, which we can talk about this for a long time. I don't know, we don't have that much time. The goal is to raise good adults, not good kids. And
good point.
You will spend the majority of your life knowing your children as adults. For a brief moment, you get to experience them as kids. Mm. And when I first heard that, I was like, oh my goodness. I mean, all of my kids are adults now.
Yeah.
Brady's been an adult for 8 years.
Right.
I remember when he was 8.
Yeah.
And it's like, I still plan on living another 40 or 50 years. I'm going to know him more as an adult.
Yep.
So this time when they're kids, the goal is to not make them good kids. We want to make them good adults.
Yeah, that's a
How
good
do we
point.
equip them to go out and be successful? I'll share this real quick, and then we'll go on to something else. I was sales manager at a coin company for a long time, and I noticed we were training the sales guys that we would only call people who had done business with us. So we weren't cold calling, but we were calling leads that maybe they haven't bought in a couple of years. Mm-hmm. And as soon as the salespeople heard no, the new people, they just get off the phone. Well, it's because they were taught no means no, right? That's what we teach our kids.
Yeah.
But to be good in business, you have to be able to respectfully, if you think your product or service really will benefit them, how do you get past that first no? Mm-hmm. How do you really understand what's going on? And I remember realizing, Brady was 12 at the time. And I was like, okay, what can I change in our parenting so he's a better salesman when he's older? And I told him, I said, hey, here's the deal. If we're going to change our parenting style a little bit, if you ask us something and we say no, I'm giving you permission to respectfully still make your case. Respectfully. But at the same time, sometimes it's a hard no. And it's the same way in business, right? Sometimes you make your offer and it is a firm no. They're not even listening.
Yeah.
Well, then you're like, okay, we'll come back to this another day. And obviously that paid off.
Yeah.
Because Brady is extremely successful. They got married at such a young age. They have 2 houses now and
Wow.
of extremely successful business. And I'm not trying to take credit for that. I think there was just wisdom there that was given. But yeah, there's so much on parenting that
That's
that I
cool.
think we need to talk about. But going back to growth, so you've got the businesses now that you got the fourth, several businesses, but the fourth office. I know Dr. Jeremy was telling me the goal there is just kind of take this next month and kind of get in there and get some foundation, see how they're doing things, what you're going to implement,
Yeah.
and then see about rebranding going into the first of the year. Was that the?
That's right. Yeah. So the A Better Way Chiropractic is the brand of our chiropractic offices now. We used to be Pure Life back then when I did my podcast with you, but then when the movie came out, A Better Way, we branded to match the movie, and then that helped us through marketing because the movie is a patient education, like a doctor's report anyway. If somebody
Sure.
watches it, they're better patients. And so then then we moved. Our second office was Montgomery, and we rebranded it last year, changed it from Simple Life to A Better Way, and then we have A Better Way Memorial City now. And that office in Conroe is an amazing office. It did 1.1 last year, just on before we even bought it. But it's called Back Pain and Joint Center of Texas, which is a really cool name, and it's a beautiful, beautiful office. So I hate to even change that name because it's like it attracts kind of that population, but at the same time, it was a little bit less family, wellness, and a little bit less like
More clinical.
more clinical, yeah. And which helped it have higher, the numbers in that office were crazy. I mean, we're talking average, the per visit average was like $175 a visit, and it's a cash practice.
Sure.
It was doing I think 5% insurance, and we just wiped that out. We don't do insurance. But yeah, so its collections are crazy, and it's per visit. I was only seeing 120 visits a week and doing 1.1 in that office, which is awesome. But you sacrifice you don't get to see kids that much, and we want to keep our values the same across all offices. So we're, like you said, we're keeping some of the really good things that were in that office that are already working, and we're trying to add some of the things from our brand that we know is working in our other offices as well.
Yeah, I'm excited for you guys. I'm excited to see. I guess I didn't really know the vision that you guys had until actually I was preaching because Dr. Jeremy goes to our church, and
Cool.
He's like, hey, we've got to just open up another office, or bought another office in Conroe, which isn't too far from my house.
Nice.
Because we were driving 30 minutes.
Oh, you got to go see that office, dude. It's beautiful.
That's what he said. He said
beautiful.
It's incredible. So,
yeah,
I'm gonna have to go check it out. But I'm excited for you guys.
Yeah.
What's next? I know we only have a few minutes left. What's next with Spinal Hygiene?
Yeah,
it's going well. It seems to be going great.
Thank you for asking. Yes. So spinal hygiene is one thing that is in every office. Every patient gets a spinal hygiene kit, and it's one thing that has helped us to I guess, as they call it, plug the leaks of the bucket. It's like we if you teach people, like Dr. Stephen Franson's a mentor of mine, and he always says the number one reason people drop out of care is not because they feel better. The reason they leave is because they just don't know why they should stay. And they're like, yeah, I mean, you're great. I love you. I love the adjustments, but I have no idea why I'm still coming, And so that's what spinal hygiene does for our patients, is it's that education of why you need lifetime spinal care, that if you don't take care of your spine, it will decay and degenerate. It's the same concept that dentists have brought us with dentistry and brushing your teeth and flossing and going to a dentist regularly. It's like, look, if you don't take care of your teeth, they'll decay, and you'll get cavities and they'll break down. If you take care of them, they will last longer. You'll have good teeth into your older ages. And we come from that standpoint, and that's helped a lot of people kind of go, okay, I get it. I'm going to come regularly because I want a healthy spine, just like I want healthy teeth, and I'm going to get my family under care. And it starts with that spinal hygiene kit, because that education's built in there. And then we kind of bring, we have built-in table talk, we have emails, drip emails that go out. As soon as a new patient starts, we sign them up for our 21-day spinal hygiene challenge. And so they get an email every day reminding them to do their spinal hygiene exercises and teaching them something about the spine and about their about why they should be taking care of their spine. And so we do 21 days because that Maxwell Maltz from Psycho-Cybernetics said it takes 21 days to make a habit. And we tell them it takes 21 days to make a habit, 90 days to change your lifestyle. So we're just getting started. You know what I mean?
So good. Let me ask you this. So we started going, we switched from Dr. Jeremy just whenever he sold the practice to you. It was so far for us to drive. And Dr. Tony, with Sandstone, we're talking like everybody knows who these people are.
Right.
They opened up a new office like a mile from our house, and it's so convenient. And that he's great, which he's not there. It's associate driven, and it's they've got lasers and all the different gadgets.
Sure.
But one of the things I noticed, and from being in the profession, it bothers me. And I would tell this to him. And I don't even know if they teach this, so they do it on purpose. For me, I would think not. But all of the staff, whenever you get there, they always ask, "Hey, how are you feeling today? Are you in pain? Are you hurting today? Are you feeling better?" And to me, that tells a patient, I should only come if I'm hurting.
Right.
And it kind of bothers me that they'd ask that all the time. And I was like, look, I'm not in pain. That's not why I come.
Right.
I'm not here for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's their team. It's
I find that and maybe this is not the same across the board, but I find if you have the higher price per visit, like people who are trying to really get high ticket, sales on those, they are really focused on symptoms. You have to be, you know what I mean? No one's going to put down $7,000 because I just want, a little bit more movement,
That may be it.
Yeah. And so they're really trying to find, which is okay. I think you kind of have to be in the middle, you know what I mean? Because I don't mind doing, and if you have neuropathy, man, and we do amazing neuropathy tests in our office. We can tell you the percentage of degeneration, the percentage of neuropathy that you have, and what phase, and I mean, way better than, in my opinion, than a lot of neurology offices. And so it's dude, this is serious. It's going the wrong direction. We got to help you turn. It's not going to happen overnight. And I'm okay with a $7,000 plan for that, because there's a lot there. There's a very big problem. If I'm saying, we need corrective care, and, it's going to take 3 months, and then we want wellness after that, my $3,000, $2,500, plan, I feel fits that pretty well. And if you're just coming in for wellness, and, I had a patient today who's coming from another chiropractor, was referred to, she's already under wellness care. She comes every week and she's under wellness care there. And I'm going to let her be under wellness care in my office for $160 a month. She comes once a week. But I'm not going to try to resell her another $3,000 plan when she has no pain. She's been under care. She's had the chiropractic.
Right.
And it might hurt my per visit average a little bit in my numbers. But you know what? I feel it's also just real and honest,
Yeah. Good. And I think there probably is something there. I mean, obviously Sandstone's a very successful practice.
They are.
They've got offices all over, this part of Houston.
They do some pretty big high-end stuff though too, I think.
They do have a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Actually,
Cryo,
Dr. Jeremy,
all kinds of stuff.
Dr. Jeremy had referred me to one of the ones by his old office, by the Montgomery office, for some shoulder issues I was having, because they have the lasers and all the stuff, and it was great. But
and that's a niche on its own too, right? Higher end niche, just like the joint would be a lower end niche. So I guess you kind of got to figure out where you want to be on that too,
Yeah. But I guess it's just going in, and every time I go in, they're like, it's the stat. It's not the the doctors. It's not the
Right.
providers. It's the, all the CAs.
Interesting.
How are you feeling? Are you hurting today?
Mm.
No, I'm not hurting. And it just bothers me. It's like,
Yeah.
you're telling people that's why they're here.
Right.
And then they're going to be like, oh, I feel fine, so I'm not going to go. That's, I don't know. I'm just maybe.
No, I get it. Yeah. I've said a couple times, how you healing? And then they're like, oh, my neck. And I'm like, no, I said, how you healing?
Which is much better. That's
right.
Tabor, thank you so much for being on today.
It's
how
my
can
pleasure.
people find out more about spinal hygiene? Because obviously it's something every office out there needs to be implementing for their just for the lifetime value of a patient is going to increase if this is something they're doing in their practice.
I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, if you go to Spinal Hygiene Products, that's plural with an S, so spinalhygieneproducts.com, check it out. You can see all our products there. There's actually a button there that you can click on a webinar where we talk more about it. And I'm always here if anybody ever has any questions. Dr. Tabor at spinalhygienist.com. Spinalhygienist.com will actually take you to one of our Life University programs that we do called the Certified Spinal Hygienist. So we've had a couple hundred doctors and their staff come through now where we create certified spinal hygienists and teach them about spinal degeneration, prevention of spinal degeneration, the best practices and exercises, and how to implement spinal hygiene like that and education like that in your practices as well.
Good stuff.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for
Appreciate
having
you
me.
being on.